What's up, Hellions? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm not opening anything, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the scalper situation that we've been seeing kind of approach the Pokemon hobby in the last, few months or so. Obviously, demand for Pokemon has gone through the roof, and when that happens and supply is not meeting demand, the scalpers are going to come out because they can resell things for a higher price immediately if they're able to get their hands on it at retail price. And we're seeing that with Shining Fates now. We also saw that with the McDonald's packs a few weeks ago where people were buying the boxes. Then they were selling the boxes on eBay for like $1,000. And I think if you bought a box, it was probably 300-ish, probably a little less than 300-ish. So you were able to immediately make a bunch of money off of that. Shining Fates right now is experiencing the same thing. ETBs of Shining Fates I've seen are going for between $100 and $150, and obviously the retail price of Shining Fates is $50. And there's a bunch of different reasons why this is happening, whose fault it is, I guess, and a lot of that is kind of blurred because a lot of people like to blame a lot of different things. And I think there are a lot of different things that are to blame here. So basically, Pokemon has a responsibility to try and meet demand. But at the same time, you don't want them to overprint things because then it will just diminish the value of the cards. So there's a fine line that they have to play within because they don't want to basically become 90s comic books and sports cards where they print so many of them that anything that came out in the 90s will no longer basically hold any value later on to collectors or investors. And there is a little bit that they have to, they have to keep some cards and the rarity of some cards rare because that's a part of the hobby. It's a big part of the hobby. Obviously, there are the players who play the game and who go to tournaments and stuff, but there's also the collectors like myself who get it because of potential investment, or they just really like the artwork on the cards, or they want to get cards graded. And up until now, as far as I can tell, Pokemon has done a pretty good job of appeasing both sides. But because of the boom and because of the timing of the boom during a pandemic when they're probably printing at less capacity than they were before, it's definitely had a major impact on them, and it's allowed scalpers to kind of invade the hobby, just like scalpers invaded the new systems when we saw those come out, the new video game systems, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, and they're still scalping these systems. I still haven't been able to get my hands on a PlayStation 5 because they sell out so fast and people are scalping them for 2 to 3 times the value. I guess what I should do, though, is I should define a scalper, because for some reason people tend to think that there are lots of different scalpers. And I want to kind of define how I look at what is a scalper, what is, I guess, a flipper, what is an investor, what is a collector, all the different things, all the different people that approach the hobby. So what I look at as scalping is if you go into a store, you buy an ETB, you turn around, you go home, and you put it up on eBay and you sell it for 2 to 3 times the price, you are a scalper. That's what I would consider a scalper. You buy something at retail price, you immediately sell it for more. Now, a flipper, in my opinion, is different, and I would consider myself a collector slash flipper to a certain extent, I guess by definition, because what I like to do is get Pokemon cards. I open all the packs, I make videos, I do them on live streams, I make content with it. I get the kind of high value cards graded, and then if I have a double, like in my video where I graded the CGC returns that I got, I had a 9 Charizard VMAX Rainbow and I had a 9.5. Now for me, I want to recoup some of my money back pulling that 9, so I sold the 9, but I kept the 9.5 for my own collection because it's a higher grade. Now, in that case, you might consider me a flipper because I bought multiple Champions Path ETBs to pull that, and then I got it graded, and then I turn around and sold it to make my money back on the ETBs. Maybe that's considered a flipper, but I'm also adding cards to my collection. So not only am I a collector, but I guess in some cases I would be considered a flipper. I would not ever, and I saw this in a stream the other day where someone posted, if you sell graded cards online, you're a scalper. And I thought, what? No. No. First of all, If your sole purpose in Pokemon is to open cards, get them graded, and then sell them because you can sell them graded for a higher price than what you pulled them for, that's just normal. I look at that more as, I guess, a flipper than a scalper. And here's why. You're not buying sealed product and scalping it for more money immediately. That is more scalper. Now, a flipper is actually doing things for the hobby, right? So they're getting cards graded. They're setting a precedence online for what price that grade will get for that card. They're also preserving that card for a future buyer. So getting a card graded is not only very time consuming, it's also expensive. It really adds up when you're getting multiple cards graded, and you have to wait on that for a long time. So you're taking that responsibility and that time consuming process away from a future buyer who wants to add this to their collection. And not only that, you're preserving it in the state in which you pulled it. So you're preserving it in a nice case, and then you're providing that to a future buyer. There's a lot of stuff that a flipper, who I guess flips graded cards, is doing for that particular card and for the hobby that a scalper is not. Now, I guess the main thing is people want to know how to stop the scalpers. How do you stop the scalpers? Here's the problem: is the scalpers buy up all the supply. So people then say, well, don't pay the scalped price. Don't go online and pay double the price for an ETB. Well, how else are you going to get an ETB? How else am I going to get a PlayStation 5? This is the problem: is if I haven't yet bought a PlayStation 5. Well, it's 6 months, 5 to 6 months probably after the PlayStation 5's release now, maybe 4 months after, and I still don't have a PlayStation 5. I am doing what a lot of you would prescribe me to do, is to wait. Do not pay the scalpers. Do not encourage the scalpers by paying them the money. That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting here now without a PlayStation 5, 4 months later, and it's still going on. So actually, I've just lost out on 4 months of playing PlayStation 5 games, right? So the problem is, if it's the only way that you can acquire the product is to pay the scalped price, then people are going to do it. People are willing to pay more to get that product earlier. We've seen that all the time with pre-orders, stuff like that. People are willing to put their money in early to get it as quickly as possible. Early adopters. And they're willing to spend more to become an early adopter. I used to be that. Asking someone just to wait, the price will come down eventually, just wait, the stock will increase, just wait. It hasn't yet. It's 4 months later. How much longer do you want people to wait to try and fix this problem? I don't necessarily think it's the consumer that is the problem here. All right, the next person's fault. I've seen this too. It's the scalper's fault. Now, this one makes the most sense, obviously, except the scalpers are fueled by something. It's kind of like a big wheel, right? A big wheel that has different spokes, and the different spokes are the different people. You have Pokémon Company, you have scalpers, you have buyers, and it just goes in a circle. And at some point, you're going to have to break the wheel. And so let's talk about scalpers. So scalpers, it's a scalper's problem. So yes, obviously the scalpers are the ones buying the product, and they're flipping it and they're scalping it, and they are the crux of the problem here. If they didn't exist, then product would still be sold out 100%, because there's enough demand that if they didn't exist, the shelves would still be empty, but at least the product would be going to probably actual collectors and people who play the TCG and people who have a positive influence on the hobby itself. But to determine why the scalpers are the problem, we have to figure out why they exist. And they exist because supply is not meeting demand. And then we have to talk about Pokémon Company. Not only do we have to talk about Pokémon Company, we have to talk about people like myself. We have to talk about, maybe not me, because I'm not big enough to have an actual influence on the actual market, but we have to talk about people like Logan Paul. We have to talk about people like Leonhardt. We have to talk about YouTubers who are doing these big box breaks for lots of money, listing PSA 10 prices when they do these box breaks, kind of spouting all of these numbers, these really high numbers for PSA 10 products, when most of these cards coming out of these box breaks are not going to get PSA 10. It's a very small percentage chance that those cards are actually going to get a 10. If they do, great. But advertising that, oh man, this could be a 10, or the 10 Charizard in this base set box is $30,000 or whatever, or, doing that to fuel sales, which eventually impact the actual market because the prices are just going to go up, is an issue. They should approach it with the idea that these cards are going to get a 9 and not a 10, because people are spending a lot of money and they are driving up the prices of these vintage boxes, and they're driving up the prices of modern, because the fact is not all of us can afford vintage. I can't run out and buy a $20,000 Team Rocket box. I can't do that. That's insane. It's just not something I can do. But I can go out and buy a Vivid Voltage booster box. Well, not now, because it's $250 for a Vivid Voltage booster box. I've heard this argument that, well, Logan Paul is not really going to have that much of an effect because he's doing vintage, and not everyone can buy vintage. So because it's so expensive, it's not really going to have that much of an impact on the market. You're insane if you think that's true. I honestly believe you're insane if you think that's true, that the hype around the vintage boxes is what's made me collect modern. Period. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there like me who see these vintage box breaks and these packs going for, thousands of dollars and think, man, I would love to get in on one of those someday, but we have to go buy the $5 pack at Target because we can't afford the $1,000 pack from the vintage box. But we want to experience it the same as the big YouTubers are, and that's how we can experience it. So to say that Logan Paul isn't going to have that much of an impact because what he's breaking is not massively available to other people because it's so expensive is absurd and false it's completely false in my opinion. The fourth spoke on the wheel, we have to talk about Pokémon Company. Pokémon Company obviously has been put in a really tough situation because they're between a rock and a hard place. The problem is they can't meet supply with demand, but it's a problem because if they increase supply too much, then they're going to basically devalue the future of a lot of the sets, a lot of the modern sets, which, again, some people will look at it and say, well, I'm not in it for the money, so I don't care, so just keep printing cards because I want to open cards. And that's great. I want to open cards too, but I'm partially in it for some money because I do sell doubles. I get cards graded, and I want to make sure that, the graded cards that I'm getting graded come back and still retain the value that I thought they were going to when I sent them out, because grading takes so long. Just because we approach it in a different way doesn't mean that we're all not a part of the hobby and we're all not valuable to Pokemon. So Pokemon has to take all of us into consideration when they're thinking about massive reprints of product. Now, they have announced that they are going to be massively reprinting product. The only thing that I can think of, I'm pretty sure Sony has maxed out production of PlayStation 5s, and it hasn't changed anything at all. It just hasn't changed anything. Now we have to get to what can really be done to stop this, because in my opinion, Pokemon can't stop this. Even if they increase production on cards, it's not going to stop the scalpers. It's just not. It's not. The scalpers aren't going to stop, and people aren't going to stop buying from scalpers if it's the only way to get the cards. So how do we actually stop the scalpers? How is it possible? The only way, in my opinion, that I think stopping scalpers is possible is for retailers and distributors to step in and create limits. There are problems when it comes to limits. Now, I went to my Target the other day for Shining Fates. They didn't stock anything. It was frustrating because I sat there for a long time waiting for them to. But I went there for Shining Fates, and they had a sign up that said you can only buy a maximum of 3 per product or UPC. So they had put a limit on how much people could buy. Now, I have been to Walmarts in which they have no limit and they never have any product. I was in Walmart the other day. I was standing in the card aisle, and a guy came up behind me, a worker at Walmart, and he said, "Sorry, man, they came in today. They wiped it all out." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "We have a group of guys. They all know each other. They all come in right when the distributor's here. So they probably know the distributor or have an in with the distributor, and they clear out all the Pokemon immediately after she puts it on the shelf. Probably before she puts it on the shelf. They just buy it all." So that, you know that those people are not collectors. Those people are not collectors. They're not going home and opening the ETBs. They're going home, they're putting it immediately on eBay, and they're making a quick buck. Retailers have to put a limit onto how much people can buy. Now, that sucks for people like me. I am a collector, but I have a full-time job, and I have some disposable income. People with disposable income are not like children. Children go to the store, they beg their parents for, one ETB or one pack, and they hope that they get it, right? And they have a finite amount of money that their parents are willing to spend on the card. So, but someone like me, someone with disposable income and a full-time job, is very different because we can buy more than one pack. We can buy more than 3 packs. And we are collectors. We are not scalpers. So a person like me is affected by the maximums because I can't go in and buy 5 ETBs, even though I can afford 5 ETBs. And I'm a collector, and I'm going to open, and I'm going to get cards graded, and I'm going to, be hype and make content around it. I can't go in and buy 5 ETBs because I'm limited to 3. And I know that the overall positive of a limit is beyond me, and people like me. Like, does it suck that it limits me, even though I'm a collector and it has an impact on me because of these scalpers? Yes, it sucks. But I understand that overall it's a net positive for the hobby and for everyone else in the hobby that these limits exist. And I think the distributors need to force the stores to put more limits on the products, especially the Pokemon products, because the people that want them, people that actually benefit the hobby, collectors and children and people who love Pokemon, are not getting the cards. We are not the ones buying the cards right now. There's one last thing I want to talk about when it comes to scalping. I want to talk about local card shops. Now, most of you guys, for some reason, I don't understand why, give a pass to local card shops if they're selling products over MSRP on launch. I don't understand this. I don't understand how this is different from scalping. I really don't. Your local card store is getting the product from the distributor at wholesale/distributor price, right? Which is less than MSRP. It's a brand new product. It's not Hidden Fates. It's not something that came out 2 years ago that now has a market value that's higher. I completely understand local card shops selling Hidden Fates for $150 a booster box, because that is the market price right now. Like that makes sense, and it's 2 years old. This isn't a brand new product. This isn't pre-orders. This isn't anything like that. How are we excusing local card shops from this discussion from scalpers? In my opinion, if a local card shop is selling a brand new retail product that just came out for 3 times the retail price because it's quote-unquote market price, I think that's scalping, 100%. I would say that is scalping. And you guys might not agree with that statement, and that's totally fine. Whatever. Support your local card shop. I think that is absolutely crap. Like, yes, should you support your local card shop? Yes, pay that $150 for the Hidden Fates ETB that they probably bought for $40. Do it. But when it comes to brand new product hitting the shelves, pre-orders even that are 2 to 3 times MSRP that these local card shops are doing, like, that is insane to me that we are somewhat supporting that or leaving them out of the discussion from the scalpers. I 100% believe that is scalping, and I think that it's really sad to see. Local card shops are basically saying that the market value of these cards is the scalper price, and that to me is just as bad as if they're scalping the product themselves, and I believe that they are. All right, guys, a bit of a rant video. Hopefully, I'll be able to cut this down so it's not a half an hour long. I've been recording it for half an hour, but hopefully, I'll be able to cut this down for you guys. If you enjoyed the video today, let me know what you think of the scalping situation, whose fault, everything that's happening down below. I would really appreciate it, and I hope that you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I hope that you're able to find some Shining Fates for not scalper price, or at least a decent price, if it's online or in a store or anywhere. I hope that you guys are able to find it. I hope that you guys are able to find any Pokemon product right now, and I hope your polls are amazing. Thank you very much for coming by. I really appreciate it. We'll see you on the next video.